Well, good morning. This morning we're picking up our story in Daniel chapter 3, verse 8. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Occasionally, it's not our norm, but occasionally the two kingdoms in which we are citizens, the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom that we're part of this earth, come into direct conflict with one another. This is one of those situations. To bow before the statue is to deny their service and worship of Yahweh. And to refuse to bow because they only bow to Yahweh is to refuse the king's command. There is direct confrontation between the two kingdoms of which they're citizens. And the same happens to us from time to time. Thankfully, not very often in our Western context, but the truth is that these things do come into conflict. And there is something else we notice here in this picture, and that is that when a moment to stand comes, often we feel very alone in that moment. If you can imagine the scene of thousands upon thousands upon thousands falling on their faces and bowing as the music's playing, and three men stand against it. And so the moment we take a stand, we are often alone. It's been the case throughout history. We think of people like Martin Luther King. We think of people who've stood in opposition to evils of culture. And they've stood and said, no, I'm not going to go with this. They've often had to stand almost alone. And with that often comes accusations, just as these three men are accused. They pay no attention to you. They don't worship your gods. There's a sense of, don't you understand the damage they're doing to your reputation? Don't you understand that they're standing against the combined wills of the people? And so in these moments, we need to draw on God's strength. When we find ourselves caught in this conflict, we need to draw on God's strength. We need to recognize that Jesus himself stood alone for us, deserted even by his disciples. In that moment when he's arrested in Gethsemane, taken off to be put on trial, Jesus stands alone in your place, in my place, taking the penalty, taking the punishment that we deserved, loving us from the cross. God loves our hearts to be one fully in this matter. Wants us to be strong and courageous, bold. Wants us to stand firm even when pressure comes on us. Of course, that's easy to say when we're not particularly pressured. And yet that's a reality for each one of us. We need to call on God, ask him for his strength. Say, God, would you help me to stand? And even if our voice feels like a lone voice, we need to keep speaking and we need to keep being who God's called us to be. So this morning as you pray, just consider these things and what they mean for you. And I'll see you tomorrow.